Forget the waiting period for major dental services. Let Spirit Dental help you find a dental plan that's right for you. Visit spiritdental.com/brain and get your $100 lifetime deductible today. Life presents the toughest challenges. Every day you are faced with decisions that test your ability to express who you really want to be in this world. We're told to keep saying affirmations and keep thinking positively, but what do you do when that stuff doesn't work? Welcome to the Overwhelmed Brain, where you'll learn to make decisions that are right for you so that you can create the life you want now. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Paul Coliani and I'm here to help you increase your emotional intelligence so that you can avoid dysfunction, handle toxic situations with grace and ease, and show up as your authentic self. Everything I talk about on the show is my personal opinion and is meant for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult a medical or psychological professional before making any changes that could affect your physical or mental health. All right, got that disclaimer out of the way. That's always important. That I really mean that when I say that. I think it's important to remember that there are professionals out there that can help and do help and will help you when you need it. So that's just a quick PSA on that, public service announcement for those not in the lingo, but I think that's pretty common around the world. And I want to talk about an email that I received a couple of years ago that I've been holding on to, regarding someone who experienced social anxiety for a while. And this episode isn't necessarily about social anxiety, but it is about, how can I put this? You don't have to like everyone. In fact, it's okay that you don't like people, and it's okay that they don't like you. And I want you to be okay. If you're not, I want you to be okay that that's true. I want you to be okay with that. And the reason I say that is because if you are one of those people that tries to be liked, tries to be friendly so that people don't see that you're a bad person, and maybe you really are just a nice person, and you try to get along with people, but for some reason somebody just rubs you the wrong way, or you rub them the wrong way, you have to come into this space of acceptance that not everyone is going to connect and get along. And I think that's pretty common. I mean, when I say that out loud, it feels natural that we would all agree with that. We may not all like it. I don't like it. In fact, I'm one of those people that when someone doesn't like me, it mystifies me. And it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. It doesn't bother me so much. I mean, maybe a little bit, because I can't understand what I did that ticked them off or rubbed them the wrong way. So it bothers me. It's a mystery. And what do you do with this? So what I do with it is remember that it's okay if I'm not liked. And in fact, it's kind of fun. To me, it's kind of fun because it takes me out of my, I don't want to say ego, but it does take me down a notch in the sense that I can't believe that I'm so likable by everyone that I can actually walk around in this earth and have everyone like me, like there's no issue whatsoever with me at all. I mean, there's a hit to your ego when that happens. But this is a good thing because without these hits to your ego, you may not try to improve. You may not see your challenges, your areas for improvement. You may not be able to see these things. And it's helpful when somebody comes along and they just don't like you. So it may not be fun. It may not be a good thing, especially if it's in family or, your brother's wife or your sister's wife or your sister's husband. Somebody may not like you and you'll just have to be okay with that. And when you're okay with it, then you can have a better time in life because you stop trying so hard to impress someone that really doesn't or will never be impressed with you. So it gives you a break. I personally like this, that you don't have to impress certain people. You don't have to impress anyone, but for sure, the people that just don't like you or don't want to be around you or think you're offensive, you don't have to try to impress them. It's a huge weight off your shoulders. It feels pretty good. Unless, like I said, they're in family and maybe they have your nephews and nieces in that family and now you can't see them or talk to them because that person doesn't like you. That's tough. I know it is. That's a challenge. But at the same time, you can't really do too much about it. And what I mean by that is just work on being your best self for you. So when you approach life like that, just being your best self for you, then you get to find out who really appreciates you being you, who honors you being you, who cares that you are being yourself and not someone else. You get to find out who all these people are, and you'll either attract or repel the people that you meet in your life and the people in your family and at work and everywhere else. And this is a good thing. It's really a good thing to have such a distinct personality, have such a uniqueness about you that you're not liked by everyone. The people I trust the least, typically, are the ones that everyone likes. That's probably not a fair statement because there's a lot of people that it seems everyone likes. But I think if you ask enough people, you'll find out some people that don't like that person. I mean, I hear stories all the time about people that I've liked for years. I've never met them, but maybe they're a celebrity. Maybe they're a big time icon. Maybe they're the CEO and owner of a big company. And I've followed them and liked them for years. And then somebody comes along and says, I hate that person. That person is evil. I mean, I've seen these posts like on Facebook. People come out and say, that person is evil. And I think, where the heck are you getting this perception of this person? And so I have a different perception, and it surprises me when somebody else has a different perception, especially an opposite perception, and I can't figure out where they got that from. And, it's obvious when I look now, there's all kinds of news stories that go around and conspiracy theories that go around. And we see these people that we may have admired at one time or still admire getting lambasted. I mean, people are offended by their presence. And it just surprises me, even now, even though I know that not everyone is likable. I think the internet and social media have really brought out everyone's opinion, whereas before, 10, 20, 30 years ago, you didn't hear everyone's opinion. You may not have known how many people liked or didn't like you or the people that you like, or the people that liked the people that you hated. There might be people out there that just have an opposite viewpoint than you do, but you never knew about them because we didn't have social media. We didn't have these groups that we all joined that we could all converse and have all these differing opinions. And now that we do, it seems that we have to become more resilient. It seems that we have to be aware that our ego may take a hit, that our values may take a hit. And we have to be aware that people are going to be completely opposite of us when we didn't really know about that before. We may have thought about it, like people may not agree with everything that we say, and we realized that before the internet was around, of course. But to hear so many people with a differing opinion, especially now when it's so easy to get someone's opinion, because all you have to do is go online and 2 minutes later you have 50 different ones, suddenly you are shocked by some of these thoughts and opinions of others, and it differs from yours. And now we do have to learn to live in a different world where we know too much about everyone. And it can be very helpful to remind ourselves that we didn't know this much about everyone before. It can be very helpful to remind ourselves that these are still the same people that we were neighbors with, that we were around for years and years and years, and never never knew what was going on inside of them until it was displayed proudly all over the world on the web. And this is something that we just have to learn to live with and be very resilient with, and be very aware about our own ego, about our own values, and be very careful about how we treat others. Because if we didn't have the internet, if we didn't have social media, then we probably wouldn't know the extent of how many people ticked us off. We probably wouldn't have the opinions or the thoughts that we have now if we didn't have the internet about people that we may have known for years or not, or may have never met. And when you are surrounded by people with differing opinions all the time, especially online, what ends up happening is that you start to see through a different lens. You start to see the world differently. You think the world is a different place than you imagined. You think that maybe there's too much negativity in the world. I mean, look at the media nowadays. We are seeing so much bad news. And when we get the bad news, we're all affected. We all take it in our own way. And we might look at this world as not such a great place, or at least the people in this world as not such a great place. I mean, this is what can happen, is that we can get conditioned because of our exposure to so many damn opinions. And, I say damn opinions because it can feel that way. It's like, I don't want to hear that opinion. I want to hear one that jives with who I am and how I live my life. And, I have morals, and I have principles, and I have values, and I have beliefs, and all of these things that I believe that we should all have in ourselves. And I think you should be a good person because I'm a good person. Yet somebody else's definition of good doesn't match yours. So, my point in this first segment is to remember that our perceptions can be wholly shaped by other people's opinions. And we may go around thinking that this is how the world is. When in reality, look at Facebook, for example. Facebook has an algorithm that when you are commenting on something or looking at something on your screen, they know what interests you long enough to keep you engaged, so they'll send more of that your way. This is my interpretation of how Facebook works. If you are looking at something that is in opposition of what you believe, and you read it and you're incensed and you're just angry and you're reading it, but you're engaged, because Facebook sees, how long you're reading it, or they see that you're commenting on it, even if it's a comment in opposition of what you read, Facebook's going to say, well, that interested you, that engaged your mind, so we're going to send you more of that. So it makes it look like there's more maybe bad news in the world than there really is. And we have to be careful, because the more we expose ourselves to that, the more conditioned we get, and the more we might have a negative attitude and maybe be pessimistic about our own lives and where the world is going and where politics is going. Who's the next president? Who's the next leader of our country or our state? We don't know these things, and we see all these opinions, and we start to form our own bias and fears and worries that may not necessarily be justified, and maybe they are justified. Because now that everyone has the ability to put an opinion out there and have it be seen in the world within a matter of seconds, I'm sure it has an effect on the global viewpoint, or at least a number of people at the same time. Whereas before the internet, we didn't have that access immediately. So we just had television, and we had to rely on what we saw on television. Now we have all this media. So I know this kind of sounds like a sideline trip I'm taking here on the personal growth spectrum, but I want you to be aware that we sometimes do this to ourselves. We sometimes put ourselves in the position of getting exposed to information that we may not agree with, that we may not like, and it starts to alter our perception of how the world operates. And we can start to believe that maybe a good percentage of the world, because they don't think like us, because they may have the opposite beliefs and values as us, that the whole world's going into the crapper. The whole world is just falling apart. And there are some serious, serious things going on in the world today. We all know it. And I just want you to remember there's also a lot of good going on in the world too. And even when the serious, serious bad stuff shows up and you see the news and you see people talking about it, it is always countered with something wonderful. And this is the dichotomy at play in the world today when somebody else comes along who's a good person and shows us a different side of humanity. When some situation happens that's terrible, some other situation happens that is in support of that terrible thing never happening again. There's always a counter. It's like I was talking to a client the other day. He's like, there's always the roller coaster. There's the big ups and the big downs. But the problem was his perspective was when there's a big up, he's waiting for the big down to happen next. So he may not have that optimistic viewpoint that he wants all the time. But I think he's learning resilience. And I think he's learning how to be more balanced in his own life so that, this is what we do. We want to try to find balance. We don't want to always expose ourselves to the negative, just like we don't want to always expose ourselves to toxic people, and that's the only people that we're around. We don't want to stick around the negativity all the time because we need the balance in our lives, and we need to know that there are things to look forward to. We want to know that there are things to look forward to so that we can move toward that silver lining. During the pandemic, what's the silver lining? Well, there's a lot going on. Some people are going to be happy working from home. Some people are going to be upset that they lost their job. Some people are going to be happy that they got a stimulus check. Some people are going to be upset that they lost someone in their life. There's going to be the up and down. And wherever our focus is how we're going to perceive the world and how we're going to perceive our level of happiness in the world. So this is a broad topic, I know, and we could go on and on about this for hours, and I could tell you all kinds of angles, but bringing it back to where I'm going with this today, I started off telling you that I got an email a couple years ago, and I'm going to read you most of it when I come back and give you my comments on it, but it's about the idea, coming back full circle, about having people in our lives that we may not like or they may not like us, and being pretty darn okay with it. And if you can do this, which I know you can, if you can do this, if you can be okay that people don't like you, you will have an amazing life. And I say this from experience, from gaining tens of thousands of listeners over the years, that I look at what I produce in the world, tons and tons of what I look at as valuable content. This is my perspective. I think I'm helping people by giving away all this information, just putting it out there, trying to help as many people as I can. I think I am on a noble pursuit. And someone will come along and give me the worst review, and they'll put me down. They'll be insulting. They'll say that I'm not a PhD, therefore I don't have a right to talk about the stuff I talk. They'll say almost anything under the sun. And I look at the past almost 7 years I've been doing this and think, wow, all of this stuff that I talk about, I think I'm helping people, yet this person says I'm bad for people or something. And I have to remind myself that, oh yeah, not everyone's going to agree with what I teach. Not everyone's going to agree with the specific steps I'm telling them to take. A lot of people are going to disagree. And to remind myself that that's okay, and in fact, that's good, really keeps me in a more balanced space. Why is it good? Why is it good that I come on the air and I do this and then I get somebody that hates what I do or criticizes what I do? That might be something that somebody does. Why is it good? I look at it as good because I think it, keeps me humble. It keeps me humble. It keeps me questioning my own beliefs, my own values, and my own teachings. Because I'll come on the air sometimes and say, I taught this before, but I think I'm going to teach it a little differently this time. It also makes me realize that I'm not all that. I'm really not. I can have 1 million listeners or more, and I still wouldn't be all that. I'm still not the end-all be-all. There are people smarter than me. There are people that know more than me, and there are people that can help more than I can. But it all depends on where the person listening is in their life, what's going on in their life, and if what I talk about on the air is helpful to them or not. And so I need to stay humble and not jump into any type of unhealthy ego space. Not that I think the ego is unhealthy, but I just think that you can get egoistic about what you do if nobody ever says anything bad or critical about what you do. So when something critical comes along, I actually welcome it. It is actually something that realigns me and helps me determine if I'm on the right path or not. And this is why I believe it's good that this happens, is that it gives me an opportunity to reevaluate my thoughts, my values, my beliefs. If I can reevaluate these things and it doesn't change my direction, it doesn't change my teachings, then it reinforces in me that I'm going in the right direction. And if I reevaluate and find out that, maybe I need to look at this differently, then it makes me a better teacher. And I think this is so important for anyone listening right now, for you, that if you get some sort of critical comment on who you are, what you do, your behavior, your work, the way you show up in the world, if anybody criticizes it, there's only two ways to look at it. Either A, you reevaluate who you are, what you do, and how you show up in the world, and it either reinforces who you are, what you do, and how you show up in the world, or it helps you improve. And both are fantastic. Both are wonderful. And it doesn't mean you have to stick around these people that constantly criticize you. Hopefully they don't, but it doesn't mean you have to stick around, but it does help to improve you either way. So like I said, we'll be right back. I'm going to read you most of this email, and we'll talk about that person's experience with not being liked. We'll be right back. I don't know how often you think about dental insurance, but it's something I think about all the time. Not really, but it is something that without it, an unexpected emergency can turn into a very costly dental bill that you weren't planning on. I mean, I remember getting, I forget what it was, a root canal something, but I thought it was going to be a couple $100 and it turned out to be over $1,000. I don't know how long dental insurance has been around, but for me, I don't remember ever being offered dental insurance. And I remember, wherever I was working, they would always offer medical insurance, but never dental insurance. So I always had to pay cash. And when I got the bill, I didn't know how I was going to pay it. I mean, this is many, many years ago, but just one tooth. Now, this is just one tooth. How am I going to get my other teeth worked on at these rates? So it really deterred me from going to the dentist. And if you heard my other episode where I talked about Spirit Dental, I told you, I was kind of embarrassed because I haven't been to the dentist in a long time. And it's about time I'm going to go back after this COVID stuff is over. I'm going to get back to the dentist and really make sure that things are going okay in there. But I was so deterred for so many years of going back to the dentist because it just felt like every single tooth was going to be like a $2,000 job. And that's like $20,000, $30,000 worth of dental work if I needed a lot done. So I avoided them for years, but I don't have to avoid them anymore because of this company, Spirit Dental. I'm looking at their plans now, and I want to make sure that you know about this company. If you've ever heard me talk about my sponsors, I always vet these companies. I always use them myself. I want to know that they're the right company for you, because if I don't like them, I don't want to tell you about them. And so far, I'm loving what I see. So I want to tell you about Spirit Dental. They make it easy to find a dental plan that's right for you. I mean, with other providers, you could run into high deductibles and long waiting periods for major procedures, and some of them might not even be covered. But Spirit's trusted plans include guaranteed acceptance, no wait period for major services, $100 lifetime deductible, even coverage for major services like dental implants, crowns, and bridges. They have a great offer for listeners of this show. If you're looking for dental coverage made easy, visit spiritdental.com/brain and get a little peace of mind. That's spiritdental.com/brain. You'll get a quote in about 60 seconds. This might be exactly what you need. spiritdental.com/brain. Welcome back. I want to read this email to you. I'm probably going to read most of it, but it's about somebody who is experiencing social anxiety. She said, I recently listened to your podcast regarding decreasing social anxiety. I did have a podcast episode a while back on social anxiety where I talk about that. So if you want to look for that, you can go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com, and under all podcast or all episodes, you will see in that list social anxiety episode. She says, I appreciate you covering this topic, which was once of great embarrassment to me. Since discovering that I am prone to social anxiety and have been my whole life, I thought it was something to be ashamed of, those feelings of shyness and self-consciousness. Now, people talk about their mental health more openly, their fears and phobias, and the shame has become much less necessary. Anyway, I do want to comment that while I agreed with almost everything you had to say on the podcast, I have come to believe that us social anxiety types place far too much blame on ourselves when social situations do not go as smoothly or as enjoyably as hoped for. Case in point, for years I blamed myself on why I didn't get along with some friends my husband introduced me to when we were first dating. My husband was friends with the male of the couple for years, and when he married, the wife was included in all of their social interactions. I just could never bring myself to open up around them, or feel comfortable or relaxed or talkative. I wondered what's wrong with me, even though there were instances where I thought they were downright snarky to me, something my husband denied. He told me to just be snarky right back, stuff like that. Finally, after several failed social attempts, I told my husband that if he wanted to socialize with his friend, he can do so without me. I felt like a failure that I could not get them to like me, or at least be a bit polite to me. Well, after several years, I finally gave myself a break. Other people liked me. Other people found me funny and charming. When I connected with those people, I didn't clam up or feel uncomfortable. Other people were much more comfortable to be around than the couple my husband introduced me to. So I finally got to admit that I did not like them, and it didn't matter if they liked me or not. Nothing was my fault, and in fact, a huge red flag was waving when I found myself feeling so uncomfortable around them. I listen to that now. I listen to my instinct. I don't waste energy on people like that. I don't need to. They were rude. They were snarky, and I don't have to take that. I still hold some resentment toward my husband for not defending me more around them, for thinking that it was okay to treat his loved ones with rudeness, and if I just toughened up and gave it right back, he said we'd all be chums. Someone without social anxiety would not tolerate that treatment. So neither will I. That's all I have to say, that sometimes an uncomfortable social situation is not our fault or all in our head. Sometimes people are not worth being around. Thank you. Great podcast. Okay. So what a great message. I mean, this is a person who wrote and said, you know what? I had this problem, but I went through some changes. I figured some stuff out, and now here I am, and I'm okay with it. I love that. That's a great message, and it has some good points in there, some good reminders about what's most important. One of the reminders that stuck out a few times in this message, and maybe you caught it too, was that the husband didn't defend her. The husband didn't stand up for her. The husband didn't say, hey, that's my wife you're talking about. Hey, you know what? Back off. That's kind of snarky. That's kind of rude. This is my honey bunny. This is my queen. You shouldn't say that stuff about her. So back down. I personally would rather see that kind of behavior, that kind of response when you're in a relationship and you experience someone that's being rude to your partner or spouse, and that when that happens, you can say, whoa, what do you mean? This is my wife you're talking about. This is my husband. This is my boyfriend. This is my girlfriend. You need to chill on that because that's not cool. It would be great if we could do that. If somebody said something nasty about my girlfriend when I was in the room right there, I would hope that I would stand up and say, whoa, what's going on here? I'd want to understand what's happening and then try to cool the situation and figure it out. I mean, it's possible my girlfriend could have ticked somebody off and made someone upset and they said something and now there's a conversation going on that I'm not part of. I took it out of context. But I would hope that if you're a couple with another couple and someone put your partner down, that you would have the type of relationship where you said, whoa, don't say that about him or her. That's not right. That's not cool. I'm not saying every relationship's like that. Sometimes you're in a tough situation with your relationship and maybe you don't care. Maybe they deserved it and maybe they deserved it. But I would hope that if you're in a relationship, that it's the kind of relationship that you love to be in and you have the utmost respect for your partner and you are willing to defend your partner and you're proud of your partner. And if you're not in the space where you can look at your partner and think, wow, I really appreciate this person. I really respect this person. I really admire this person. Ask yourself why. And then maybe have a conversation about it. Because, how long are you going to go in a relationship before you talk about such stuff? Or are you going to just hold it in, hold back, and then when someone comes along and says something about that person and it's not very nice, and then inside you're thinking, I agree, that's tough. I mean, if you're in that type of situation, if you are, it's something to think about. This is what we talk about in the show, the sensitive stuff. And it's important that you know where you stand with a person in your life, just like they know where they stand with you in their life. So that's just something to think about and something I wanted to comment on from this email. I would hope that her husband would say, hey, that's my wife you're talking about. I think that's kind of a healthy response. Not that you want to be confrontational. Maybe you do. Maybe you have to. But wouldn't it be nice if your partner or a friend of yours or someone who really loved you stood up and said, hey, you need to leave that person alone. That's my friend you're talking about. That's my partner. That's my spouse. It just feels good when somebody does that for you. And I'm sure if you did that for someone, they would feel good about that too. Anyway, I don't want to get too off track here. I want to get back to where she says that someone without social anxiety would not tolerate that treatment. That's a powerful statement there. I mean, that may not be 100% true. I mean, some people without social anxiety might still tolerate the treatment, but certainly someone with healthy boundaries wouldn't tolerate the treatment. So I really appreciate that she said that because it is an empowering statement. I mean, that's very empowering to say, you know what? Someone without social anxiety would not tolerate that kind of treatment. Think about something you can say in your life about something that you may be tolerating. Like I think about when I was a teenager and I was living in the house with my alcoholic stepfather, I might say, you know what? Someone with healthy boundaries wouldn't tolerate being treated the way he treated me. And I'm not saying that I'm giving myself the answer in that moment, but it does feel empowering when I say something like that to myself. So if he showed up in my life today and I felt any little emotional trigger and I crawled into my shell inside myself and thought, oh boy, here we go, I got to deal with this. Hopefully I wouldn't do that, but I would probably empower myself and say, you know what? Someone who teaches how to deal with toxic people wouldn't cower into their shell. That might be an empowering statement for me. It might also be kind of like a challenge to me too. Like, you know what? You're a teacher. You can't just cower into your shell and be afraid. You need to stand up to this person. Ooh, that's a tall order, and I better fulfill it because I'm challenging myself to do this. Because someone who is in this position shouldn't back down from this challenge. This is a challenge you need to face. And that's exactly what I did a few years ago when I did face him. I've talked about it on the show before, but when I faced him for the first time after many, many years, that's pretty much the thought process that went through my head, is that, you know what? I am a person that teaches healthy boundaries, that teaches how to deal with toxic people and what to do, and being comfortable in your own skin to be able to face this person and, face the consequences of being in integrity. And here I am face to face with one of my childhood fears that I'm still carrying around, and I have an opportunity to be this new person that I am, or the old person that I've always been, which is that fearful little child afraid to face my biggest challenge. And I didn't want to be that anymore, because someone who's learned everything that I've learned over the years and wants to live a life without a childhood fear running the show, without my inner child being so scared that I can't even stand up for myself, I don't want to be that person. And someone who's learned everything that I've learned should not tolerate his bad behavior. So it's time for me to stand up. I think that's a great challenge to put on yourself when you are facing things like this. I'm not saying you should always do it. You have to pick your battles wisely, but I think it's important to remember all the steps you've taken to get where you are today so that you don't back down when the challenge comes. I talked about that a little bit a few days ago or last week. The challenge does come when you've learned everything you need to learn about it. It's just a matter of going through the challenge. And it can be challenging. It can be tough. But reminding yourself with some sort of empowering statement like, you know what? I've worked hard to be who I am today. I'm not going to let this person or anyone else ruin that. And that can be very empowering. So again, I'm just complimenting this person who wrote that empowering statement. And I'm proud of you. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you feel that way. And she goes on to say, sometimes an uncomfortable social situation is not our fault or all in our head. And sometimes people are not worth being around. And I'm going to end it with that because it's true. Just like I started with it. It is true. Some people are not worth being around. And it's not that they're not worthy to someone else. It's not that they're not important to someone else. It's not that they're not good people in someone else's eyes. It's just that they are not right for us. I think that's a very healthy perspective. This person isn't right for me. And I'm going to be okay with that. Because I don't have to change anyone's mind. And I don't have to convince anyone to be anything else than they are. I don't have to convince them to like me. I don't have to convince anyone anything, because I quite enjoy who I am. And I want them to enjoy who I am too. And I also want to enjoy who they are. And if I cannot enjoy who they are, then perhaps I don't need to be around them. I know that's not easy, not with everyone. Sometimes there's family involved. Sometimes you can't not be around them, and you have to figure out different ways to deal with them. But don't be afraid to be okay not wanting to be around people. Be okay with it. No, I don't like that person, and I don't want to be around that person, and I'm okay with that. That's great. And don't ever think about it. Because if you can get into that space where you're okay around people that aren't so okay, then you can be in a better space in yourself, and it gets you out of the concerns and the worries and the stress of trying to make peace with certain people that you just can't do it. I mean, sometimes you have to accept that some people are not compatible and they're not friendly and they don't like you, and other people love you. And it's just the way it is. It's just the law of averages. Everything just balances out. Some people are great. Some people aren't. Some people are helpful. Some people are hurtful. And there's the roller coaster that we all have to ride. And that's okay. We can adapt. We can move on. And we just want to invest our time and energy into people and situations that really benefit and serve us in a way that make us feel good about ourselves. because we all know the situations and the people that don't make us feel good about ourselves and sometimes make us feel downright bad about ourselves. And we have to be careful how much of that we allow into our lives. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be right back. I'll say some thank yous and my goodbyes and my final words right after this. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to remind you about Spirit Dental. Head over to spiritdental.com/brain and get a little peace of mind. Get a quote on dental coverage in about 60 seconds. spiritdental.com/brain. And I want to take a moment to thank the patrons of the week, James, Amy, Angela, Karen. And wow, Karen, I see your name a lot. You've been a patron for a long time. Thank you. Nikki, Victoria, Crystal, all of you I'm so grateful for. If you're a patron, listen for your name. I name off a bunch every week. The ones that I see that are still subscribed, that are still supporting the show, I appreciate you, all of you. And if you want to support the show, you can do the same thing over at patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. And you'll have an opportunity to support. You can either support monthly or a one-time donation. However you feel. If you're getting value from the show and it's in your budget and you want to support the show, head over to patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. And if it's not in your budget, just keep sharing the show and learning and growing and healing and evolving as much as you can, because I am so grateful for anyone that listens and gets value from the show. So thank you, patrons, and thank you, everyone, for continuing to listen to the show and show your support in the way that suits you best. I appreciate you. And I want to remind you about the Love and Abuse podcast. If you haven't heard about that, that's my other podcast I do. It's called Love and Abuse. It's over at loveandabuse.com. And it's for anyone that finds themselves in a relationship that they really can't figure out what's happening, or they know something's wrong, but they don't know how to figure out what that is. Maybe you feel like you're being blamed for everything, or maybe you're in an emotionally abusive situation. Maybe you feel guilty all the time. Maybe you think you're responsible for everything that goes wrong. There's a lot going on in a relationship like that, and I think it's important to learn everything you can about it. Go over to loveandabuse.com if you want more information on that, and hopefully that will be helpful to you. And I want to thank two people in iTunes that left reviews. One is by someone with a very, very long iTunes handle that is all numbers. So it starts with 357, goes on and on up to 368. So I don't know what that number means to them, but maybe it was the only iTunes handle left. So they typed that in. This person wrote, truly inspiring. These podcasts are almost like additional therapy sessions for me. They get me thinking in ways that are different than what I have been telling myself for years, which magnifies the clarity of seeing a particular relationship in my life for what it is. And this person goes on and on. They said, thank you, Paul. I'm so grateful that I found this podcast a few weeks ago, and it's perfect timing for where I am today in my life. Thank you so much for that, and I appreciate your words. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad you get something from this show. And this other person is named, iTunes name is Angmar2005. Says, great topics. I've been listening to TOB for months, and the topics include a great variety of current and appropriate issues. If I think the topic might not really apply to me, there are still nuggets that really make me think. Thank you, Paul, for providing such important and impactful content. I feel I've made some definite improvements for a healthier emotional way to react to some of my past and recent problems. Thank you for sharing that. I love reading these reviews. The good ones. And I read the bad ones too. I fortunately don't see too many of those, but when they come in, I read those on the air as well, because I like to be totally transparent. Hey, if somebody says something about me, you need to hear it too. I want you to have your own opinion about the show. And if somebody says something that maybe they're calling me out on, I want you to hear it too. I want you to form your own opinions. I want you to have your own thoughts about the show, about me, so that you can make the right decisions for you. Because I'm not here to make your decisions. I'm just here to give you guidance in ways that I know, that I'm familiar with, that I believe might be helpful to you. And then you have to take the big steps. You have to take the steps towards healing and growing and all that stuff to help you improve yourself, improve your relationships, and improve your life. So I'm grateful to these iTunes reviewers and everyone else that reviews the show. I know there are other podcast platforms that people review the show, and I get to those every now and then, just not as often, but I do end up reading all of them. So if you ever review the show, I will eventually see it. So I appreciate you. Thank you for anyone that does that. It helps spread the word and let people know that this is a good show to tune into. So if you believe that's true, write a review. Hey, that works well. So thank you, iTunes reviewers. Thank you, anyone that comments on the show, blogs about it, post it as a list of top podcasts to listen to. I see those a lot, and I'm very, very grateful and very humbled. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And of course, let me thank Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. And I'm just going to give you a little personal story for the end of the show. The other day, I stepped on a rusty nail in the backyard. And I didn't know it was there, obviously. And I stepped on it, and my girlfriend was right there. And as I was stepping down on it, I'll try not to be too graphic in case you're squeamish, but as I was stepping down on it and it made an impact, I made the funniest noise. I mean, it's funny to me because when I did it, I can't even imitate it now, but it was just a weird, funny noise. And then I just had to close my eyes, because I yanked my foot off, closed my eyes, and just kind of said, SH, what, to myself. And I said, oh crap, I'm going to need a tetanus shot. I'm going to need a tetanus shot because I just stepped on a rusty nail. And how terrible is it? Well, I was very silent for about a moment, and my girlfriend's looking at me, and she's like, oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I said, I just stepped on a nail. And she goes, oh. And then she said, I saw that the other day and I should have picked it up. And so she didn't pick it up, but I could have done the same thing. I could have saw that nail a year ago and never picked it up. And then suddenly one of us steps on it and I would tell myself, oh, damn it, I should have picked it up. So I picked up this piece of wood. It was like 2 feet long, and this nail stuck up like 3 inches, and it was rusty as heck. And fortunately, I didn't step on it all the way through. Like, it didn't go through my foot. And it was just enough, though, to get that stuff inside my skin. So I knew there was going to be a tetanus shot, and I decided, well, okay, this is one of those moments where you're on the roller coaster. Things are going great. I'm in the backyard. I think we were planning to do something back there. And we're just walking around the yard, and everything's nice. It's a wonderful day. We're getting along wonderfully. And I step on this thing. And now the rest of the day is going to be about getting help. Going to the urgent care center and having them look at it. And that was an interesting experience. It was the first time I'd been to a hospital since COVID began. And to see that giant white tent up and to follow the procedures when you're there, you got to wear a mask and you got to wait outside, and then you're called in, then you got to go back outside, and on and on. So I ended up getting it x-rayed, which I didn't even know they x-rayed you when you step on a nail, but apparently they do. So if anyone ever steps on a nail and you go to the hospital, expect an x-ray because they look for rust particles. And so, okay, I had that happen. And then I got the tetanus shot, and they said it was going to be painful, at least in a couple days or 3 days. And I'm on day 3 now, and I felt no pain. So that impressed me, like, wow, I'm not feeling any pain from this tetanus shot. But we left the hospital, and then I think we grabbed a bite to eat, and then we went home. And, our day was shot. It was gone. We spent hours waiting at the hospital. And somebody might look at that and go, oh, your day is shot. How terrible. That's awful. You missed all this time that you could have been doing something else. You had to do work. You had to take care of business at home. You had to take care of home projects. And I realized, yes, I could look at it like that. Or I could look at the heroes that saved the day, that x-rayed me, that gave me the shot. And I could thank modern medicine for being able to keep me from possible death, because a rusty nail could be fatal. I mean, it could poison your bloodstream, and I'm not sure exactly what happens, but there's a reason they have the tetanus shots, to avoid any type of neurological damage. And so as I'm thinking about how I can apply what I teach, what I know, what I've learned, and realizing that I could look at this situation as terrible, or I could look at this situation and be so grateful that we have these kind of resources, or at least I was able to access these resources. I was fortunate enough to have medical insurance. I don't think it meets the deductible. I'll probably have to spend some cash on this, but to have people out there that save your life, that's just amazing to me. So again, this is a personal segment. I'm sharing this with you. Anyone in the medical field, any of the first responders out there that quite literally save our lives, thank you. Thank you for what you do, for who you are, for what you have to put up with. Because I know there's a lot of stuff out there you have to put up with. And thank you for being you, for being resilient, for being tolerant, for taking care of so many people that can sometimes be hard to deal with. You know, we think about our own lives and how many people we have to deal with in our lives. And we may not have to deal with the best and the worst of society. We may have to deal with a segment of that. I mean, we all deal with a segment of society. But think of any type of first responder, or even any frontline person, even the person serving your coffee at the coffee shop, even the cashier at the convenience store. All of these people have to deal with every type of personality that comes their way. Can you imagine? I mean, you may not have to imagine. You may deal with them every day. Believe me, when I was in tech support, I dealt with a lot of hard to deal with personalities, because usually when somebody calls tech support, they're already angry, nothing's working, and that's tough. You become a psychologist and a technical support person at the same time, which is probably why I transitioned so easy 10 years ago into coaching. But the idea that you have to deal with all these personalities is either going to make you or break you. It makes you if you adapt, if you are resilient, if you take nothing personally, and it breaks you if you take everything personally and think that their negativity has anything to do with you, because it usually doesn't. People carry around this stuff and they bring it to us. They aren't just suddenly this person when they arrive. They are bringing this to us. We're exposed to it. And when we are exposed to it, how are we going to respond? That's why it's so important to work on your emotional resilience. It is a level of tolerance too, but I don't necessarily like to teach tolerance, because that means accepting bad behavior. I do like to teach emotional resilience, because that means you are probably more equipped to handle more types of personalities and not get emotionally triggered, or at least as emotionally triggered as you could with certain types of people. So when they show up in your life, or when you have to deal with them on the front line, you remember that they brought this and they live with it and they deal with it, and the people in their lives have to deal with their personality, and all you're getting is exposure in this one instance. And how are you going to respond to that? That's why when you work on yourself, improve yourself, and become the most improved version of yourself, you can show up for them in a way that maybe nobody else shows up for them as. And remembering that they brought whatever they brought with them, and if they have this negative attitude or they're very difficult to deal with, it could help us be just a tad more compassionate to certain people. Not saying you have to tolerate it. Some people do. Frontline first responders kind of have to tolerate a lot of this stuff. But that's why it's important to work on your emotional health, your emotional well-being, your emotional resilience, so that you get into a space that you are calm and confident in you, and you feel good in yourself without too much chaos going on inside your own head, so you can kind of be that open, receptive person that perhaps they aren't used to being around, because they may turn a lot of people off. You know, I've met people that turn everyone off. There are certain people like that. And you also have permission not to like these people. And you also have permission to not to have to deal with these people. And you also have a choice to have certain people in your life. And even though you might be required to deal with certain people and you can't get out of it, always remember who you are, and always remember that if they are that negative to you, just imagine what's going on in their head. And yes, again, that can turn on the compassion, and it might be helpful. And sometimes you just may not be able to do that. Sometimes you're just going to be like, I can't wait until I stop dealing with this jerk. And you know what? That's okay too. Because some people come along and yeah, they're just jerks, and we will just have to tolerate it for a little while until they leave. Hopefully they go away and we don't have to deal with them anymore, and we can move on, and the roller coaster goes back up, and then everything's fine again. The good news is it always gets better. I'm not saying that it gets better, and never worse. I'm just saying if it's a bad situation, it will get better. It will get better. But it does quite often involve a lot of self-growth. But that's why I'm here. That's why you have resources like this. I'm hoping that this show helps you. I'm hoping that you are always working on yourself and always keeping that open mind so that you can step into your power and be firm in your decisions and actions. That's how you create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing.